You wake to the itch of straw pricking your shoulder and the weight of a rough wool blanket tugging at your legs. The air is bitter with cold, and your breath comes out in pale mist. There is no mattress, no pillow, no warmth except your own body curled tightly into itself. You slept in your underdress because changing clothes at night is a luxury you cannot afford, not in time, not in firewood, not in modesty. There is no alarm clock. Instead, the rooster crowed moments ago, its shrill cry echoing through the damp timber walls. You hear the shifting of your children nearby. They sleep huddled like pups under a second, coarser blanket, shared between four small bodies. No one stirs yet, but the house is slowly waking. You know what that means. It's time to get up. You move carefully to avoid waking your husband. He's still breathing deeply, curled toward the heat of the dog at his feet. His boots are by the hearth, cracked and drying from yesterday's rain. He'll want them warm in the morning. You slip from under the blanket and step onto the floor. Chill strikes your feet like a slap. The packed dirt beneath you is cold, still damp from the night's mist. You hiss, quietly, biting your lip to keep from gasping aloud. The rush of cold up your legs is a cruel but familiar greeting. It is always this way in the mornings, especially in winter. You reach for your shawl from the peg on the wall, drape it around your shoulders, and begin the day. First, the fire, or rather, the remains of it. You crouch beside the hearth and push aside yesterday's ashes, searching for a spark that might still be buried beneath the soot. A whisper of heat grazes your knuckles, thank God. Take the wisp of dry grass saved from last summer's harvest and nurse the ember into flame, blowing softly, coaxing it to life like a sleeping infant. You feed it twigs, then sticks, then a split log from the pile near the door. Wood is low. You'll have to chop more today, or perhaps barter with the neighbor for some if he's in a generous mood. The hearth groans and hisses as the log catches. You feel some life return to your fingertips. You check the pot. It's empty, dry, and beginning to rust. You'll need water. The bucket is outside, near the well, and the path is slippery. You sigh. Carefully, you unlatch the door and push it open. The cold outside is worse, wind slicing across your cheeks, tugging at your shawl. The grass is crusted with frost and crunches underfoot as you step out. Your breath clouds the air like smoke. You trudge to the well and draw water, struggling against the stiff rope, your fingers aching with each tug. Bucket rises slowly, sloshing. You pray it doesn't spill, it's too cold for another trip. Inside again, you pour the water into the pot, hang it over the fire, and set it to boil. It will be a while. Use the time to shake the children awake, gently nudging their cold toes, murmuring softly, "Come now, my lambs, it's morning." Their groggy faces turn toward you, pink with sleep and chill. The youngest whines. The eldest, barely 10, helps you coax the others upright. Smooth their hair with your hands and wrap their shawls tightly. You check your hands, already dry and cracked. Your nails are rimmed with ash and dirt that never seems to come out. You rub them clean against your apron, then wipe your eyes. There's no time to rest. Breakfast must be made. Not that there's much. A heel of coarse rye bread, hardened overnight, and a ladle of thin porridge if the oats stretch that far. Maybe a root vegetable, sliced and boiled if any are left in the cellar. Sigh again. The family's teeth have worn down from chewing bread so tough it might as well be stone. But it's food. It must do. You hear your husband stir behind you. You straighten, hide your wariness, and begin preparing his bowl first. That is the order of things. As he sits at the table, you set the bread before him and step aside. He grunts a greeting, then eats. You serve the children next. You eat last, if there's anything left. And through it all, no one asks how you slept. Fire crackles louder now, and you add another log. The house is warming. Slowly. You wash the wooden bowls with cold water and a cloth that smells faintly of mildew. You glance toward the window, just a slit in the wall covered with oiled cloth, and see the first hint of daylight pressing against the mist. You close your eyes for a moment. Just a breath. And then, you begin again. You once had dreams of being free. maybe running through fields, maybe learning to read like the monks, maybe sewing for pleasure instead of need. But that was before your body belonged to others. First your father, then your husband, now your children. You rise, you labor, you give, and you endure because that is what a woman does here. You look down at your hands. The skin is rough, the nails split, a bruise on the forearm you don't quite remember receiving. There is no softness left in your fingertips. No time for softness. Not when there is bread to knead, water to haul, wool to card, and a child always pulling at your skirts. You were married at 14. You bled for the first time and, not long after, bled again in childbirth. It was not a question. The village needed mouths to feed the field, and heirs to keep the land. You were a body, a vessel, a duty. The old women nodded approvingly. "She's strong," they said. "She'll bear many." There was no celebration on your wedding night. No candlelit chambers or whispered promises. There was a cot and a man who smelled of horse and sweat and ale. He took what he believed was his right. You remember staring at the thatched roof above you, counting the knots in the timber while your heart pounded in your throat. No one asked if you were ready. Girls like you never are. And now, you carry the stretch marks, the hip pain, the heaviness in your lower back. You've borne 5 children, 3 who lived, 1 who left in a fever, and 1 who never drew breath. There was no time to grieve properly, no place to weep. You carried on, because that's what was expected. Sometimes your womb cramps when you lift the buckets. Sometimes blood comes in between cycles. But you don't mention it. If you rest, the bread burns. If you rest, the fire dies. If you rest, someone might say you're lazy, or worsey weak woman. At the village feast, you see men your age with fewer wrinkles. Their hands are still calloused, but their posture is upright. Laugh freely, eat first, and do not worry about laundry drying in the cold. You glance down at your own body, layered in wool and apron, and feel invisible. That, too, is a part of womanhood in this world. The priest says your body is a temple, but only if you stay pure, silent, obedient. And even that temple belongs to your husband. If he beats you, you must have deserved it. If he cheats, it is your fault for being less fair, less kind, less willing. You once heard whispers about a midwife who used herbs to keep herself from conceiving. She vanished soon after. Some say the church sent someone. Others say a jealous wife reported her. You don't speak her name. You barely think it. The fear is too near. Your body labors every day, but no one praises its strength. No one notices the way you carry toddlers on your hip while stoking the fire. No one thanks you when the house is clean, the porridge warm, the socks mended. The things you do are invisible until you forget one. And still, you keep going. Your breasts have long since stopped giving milk, but your children still press into you for warmth. Your hips ache in the morning, your knees crack when you kneel for prayer. And yet, every night, your husband expects you in bed. There is no word for consent here. Only duty. Only silence. You once wondered what it would feel like to bathe in a private room, to wear a gown of linen untouched by smoke and sweat. You wondered what it would be like to say no, and have it mean something. But that world is not yours. You bear the body of a medieval woman. And it is not yours to claim. Before a single bite reaches your lips, your body has already done more work than many do in a day. The morning does not wait, and no one else will carry the weight for you. So you rise, not from desire, but from necessity. The house depends on you. The children need you. The animals need you. And the world, the small, narrow world of this medieval village expects you to move before it even begins to stir. The fire is going now, crackling low with life. You bend again, this time to gather the soiled linens, diapers of cloth, rags for wiping noses, towels used to mop up spilled broth or muddy feet. All of it must be scrubbed. There is no soap in the way you'd wish. Just lie you made yourself, caustic and biting. Wooden wash basin waits by the door. But before washing comes the well. You need more water. Always more water. You brace yourself and step outside again, shoulders wrapped in a shawl, the wooden yoke heavy across your back. 2 buckets dangle from the ends. The path is slick with frost, and your shoes, made of stiff leather and patched 3 times, offer little grip. At the well, your breath fogs the air again. The crank groans as you draw, and the rope creaks with resistance. Your hands throb from cold and overuse, but you do not pause. You cannot. When the buckets are full, you turn carefully back toward the cottage, every step a balancing act. Inside, the children are fussing. One has a cough. Another is bickering over a scrap of blanket. You hush them gently, firmly. There's no time for softness yet. You pour the water into the basin and begin to scrub. Your hands plunge into the cold water, red and raw. The cloth resists the lye, the stains cling. You knead, twist, slam the fabric against the wood. The muscles in your arms burn, and the skin around your knuckles cracks, but still you scrub. The rhythm is automatic, almost like prayer. When it's done, you wring each cloth out and hang them near the hearth. There's no sunshine today, and the dampness may cling for hours. But it must be done, or the smell will sour the house. Then comes feeding the animals. The hens are restless in their coop, feathers puffed against the cold. You scatter the grain carefully, rationing the sack that's already running low. One hen pecks at your boot, ungrateful but bold. You swat her away with a tired sigh. The pig needs slop. You save scraps from last night, mix in turnip greens and bits of crust, then haul it out in a clay pail. The pig is loud, grunting and pushing against the fence. Mutter at it like an old friend. Back in the house, the eldest child is waiting. "Mother, I'm hungry," she says, rubbing her eyes. You nod, kiss the top of her head, and reach for the bread. It's a dark, dense loaf baked 3 days ago. It smells faintly sour but not spoiled. You saw off 5 thin slices with a dull knife, spreading them with a thin smear of goose fat. You wish you had butter or a bit of jam, but those are luxuries for festivals. The porridge is bubbling, no oats cooked down with water, no milk. A pinch of salt if you're lucky. You stir it slowly, watching the lumps dissolve. Your middle child sneezes. You make a note to find some time, leaves later to boil for tea. You serve your husband first when he finally rises. He eats quickly and says little. You pass him a cloth to wipe his mouth. He drops it onto the floor when he's done. You pick it up, of course. The children eat next. One spills a bit onto the table. Clean that too. Only when everyone else has eaten do you serve yourself. Your portion is thinner, but you don't complain. Hunger is familiar company. You eat standing, one hand on your youngest's shoulder to keep her from tipping over. And when the meal ends, it is your task to clean. You scrape the bowls, rinse them with more cold water, dry them on your apron. The smell of boiled oats lingers in the air, clinging to your skin and clothes. You glance at the sun through the cloth-covered window. It's barely cleared the trees, and already your back aches. Day has only begun. The real work: spinning, mending, tending the garden, checking the trap still lies ahead. You feel the weight of it, but you carry on, because no one else will. The kitchen isn't a separate room. It is the fire at the heart of the home, a sooty, smoke-stained corner beneath the wooden rafters where heat and labour meet. It is also a place of wrist burns, blisters, smoke inhalation, and the daily dance with fire and boiling water. But it is yours to tend, and no one thanks you for keeping the family alive with it. You kneel before the hearth again, feeding it more wood. Each log you add is a decision, how much to burn now versus how much to save for nightfall. Wood is scarce this week. You barter for it when you can, maybe with eggs or a spool of thread, but often it's your own axe and your own aching arms that bring it in. The fire hisses as the wet bark heats. Pop. Then a snap. Sparks leap, and you jerk back just in time to avoid a hot cinder landing on your forearm. You've been burned there before. The mark never quite fades. The pot over the fire is blackened from years of smoke and stew. You scrub it only as much as needed, because each cleaning wears away the iron. Today, it holds a thin barley porridge with wilted greens, It will be lunch, and likely dinner, two stretched with more water, a turnip if one is found. Crouch beside it, stirring slowly with a wooden spoon. Your face grows warm, one cheek flushed with heat while the other side of your body remains cold. Sweat forms along your brow even as your toes remain numb inside cracked shoes. The chimney barely draws the smoke. Your eyes sting, and you blink furiously as ash flits through the air. The children cough now and then, but they're used to it. Everyone is. You notice the bread from yesterday has gone stale faster than usual. Hold it to your nose, it smells faintly of mold. Not enough to discard. You'll scrape it. Maybe toast it on the edge of the fire so the children won't notice. You reach toward the back of the hearth for a small iron pan, grabbing it with a cloth. But the cloth is too thin, and you feel the heat sear through almost instantly. You drop the pan, cursing under your breath, and press your fingers to your apron to cool them. This isn't the first burn, nor will it be the last. Cooking in a medieval home is more than recipes and timing. It is a full-body effort, lifting heavy pots, hauling water, controlling flame with instinct. There are no thermometers, no stoves with knobs, only your judgment, your ears, your nose. A moment too long, and the meal is ruined. Too short, and it's raw dangerous. If the food isn't ready on time, no one blames the fire. They blame the cook. A small girl, your youngest, clings to your skirts while you stir. She is hungry already. Her stomach growls audibly. You smile at her, brushing soot from her nose with a finger, and whisper, "Soon, my dove." She doesn't complain. She knows the rules of waiting. You let the porridge thicken a little more. You ladle it into rough wooden bowls, blowing gently across the surface before handing one to each child. The youngest slurps eagerly. You smile again and return to the pot. As the family eats, you scrape together the scraps bits of skin from an onion, ends of crust, a piece of boiled leaf. These will go to the pig or into tomorrow's pot. Nothing is wasted. Nothing ever can be. After the meal, you gather the bowls, rinse them in the basin, and hang the cloths to dry. The hearth must be tended again, the ashes shifted to the side, the fire banked for later. There is no hour in the day when the kitchen can be ignored. Not unless you wish to freeze, or starve, or both. Sometimes you dream of a world where cooking is a joy, where stoves are clean, where bread rises soft and golden in ovens you can control with a dial, where your back doesn't ache and your fingers aren't blistered from flames, where someone else makes a meal just for you. But then the baby cries. Wind howls through the cracks in the door. And you remember where you are. This kitchen is not your refuge. It is your battleground. And you return to it, day after day, because no one else will fight this war. The chores don't stop, because your child is fussy. They don't stop when your back throbs or your fingers crack open and bleed. And they certainly don't stop, because you're tired. In this life, tired is the default. You wear it like a second skin. Your youngest is too small to walk far, but too big to carry in your arms all day. So you bind her to your back with a length of worn cloth, tying it across your chest and shoulders the way your mother taught you. The tiny legs press against your ribs, her breath warm through the wool of your bodies. She hums softly, sucking her fingers. For now, she is content. You pick up the spindle. Wool needs spinning. You've carded the fleece already, combing it until soft, separating the matted tufts into fine strands. Now you twist and pull, letting the spindle drop and spin by its weight. The rhythm is soothing, almost meditative if your shoulders went screaming and your hips didn't feel misaligned from years of carrying babies. Thread collects slowly, winding into a tight coil. You can already see its future. Socks for winter, perhaps. Or if enough is spun, a tunic for the eldest child. Nothing you spin is ever for yourself. Your eldest daughter comes in from the yard, her hair tangled, her cheeks red. She's been helping gather kindling but scraped her hand on a splinter. You inspect the wound. It's shallow. You wrap it with clean linen and kiss the top of her head. She smiles at you like you've given her the world. Return to your work. The child on your back begins to shift, restless. You bounce gently on your heels, never breaking your rhythm. Twist, pull. Twist, pull. Outside, the garden beckons. It's hardly more than a patch of soil fenced with sticks, but it grows cabbage, onions, and the occasional carrot. You step outside with your daughter, babe still strapped to your spine, and begin checking for pests. Slugs have eaten half the outer leaves. You flick them away with a stick, muttering your annoyance under your breath. Your fingers sink into the earth. The soil is cold, wet, and stubborn. You tug at weeds with one hand, brushing dirt from the base of the sprouts, patting down loose mulch. Your daughter sings quietly beside you, a lullaby you once sang to her. Then it's time to mend the coop. The hens have been escaping again, finding their way into the neighbor's grain pile. You wedge new twigs into the fence, binding them with twine made from last season's flax. It's not beautiful, but it holds. Child on your back has fallen asleep now, her face pressed against your shoulder, mouth slightly open. Her drool soaks through the linen. You don't mind. It's warm, and warmth is always welcome. You check the snare traps you laid in the woods beyond the field. Nothing caught today. Just another empty loop in the mud. You reset them, carefully, praying for a rabbit tomorrow. The family needs protein. Everyone's been sluggish. The children's eyes are dull. You return to the house, your steps heavy, shoulders aching from your daughter's weight. Inside, the hearth has dimmed. You stoke it again, carefully feeding it kindling with one hand, while the other supports the sleeping child still tied to you. A pot of water is set to warm, always water on the boil, ready for cooking, cleaning, or herbal tea for coughs. Then comes the mending. You sit beside the window, catching the faintest bit of light through the oiled cloth pane. A pile of clothes wait shoals to patch, seams to tighten, buttons to replace. You take up a tunic and thread your needle, moving in small, deliberate stitches. It's not quiet work. The children argue in the corner. Your middle son refuses to share the stool. Baby wakes and begins to cry. You hush her gently, bounce her against your chest, all while your needle keeps moving. You do not complain. Complaining changes nothing. Instead, you hum softly. The melody is ancient past from your mother, who learned it from hers. A song for hands that never stop moving. Sometimes you catch sight of yourself in the iron kettle's reflection, just a ghost of a face, framed in shadows and smoke. You look older than you should. The lines around your mouth speak of things endured rather than spoken. Your hair, once thick and dark, is beginning to silver, though you are not yet 35. Still, you keep working. You always do, because if you stop, who will carry it all? Your child clings to your back. Your hands never rest. This is your life. And no one writes it down. No one records your labors in the manor's ledgers or carves your name in stone. But you remain. You endure. You persist in silence, in motion, in love. It comes without warning, sometimes a dull ache low in your belly, the heavy pressure building in your spine. A wave of fatigue sweeps over you, deeper than simple exhaustion. You know what it is. You've known since you were a girl. Curse. The moon's calling. The bleeding. There is no comfort in it. No privacy. No rest. Your monthly bleeding doesn't excuse you from your duties. There are mouths to feed, children to wash, fires to tend. The spinning must be done. The bread must be kneaded. Life continues, even as your body protests from within. You feel the warmth begin to soak through the layers beneath your dress linen shift, coarse wool, apron. You hope it hasn't stained through. You shift awkwardly on your stool, praying no one notices. There are no sanitary cloths, no shops with cotton pads wrapped in paper. There are rags, reused many times, boiled in lye between uses, worn thin at the edges and rough to the touch. You fold one carefully and slip away behind the curtain at the back of the house to change. The space is barely enough to stand in, a nook behind a hanging blanket strung across the room. This is your only privacy. You squat and remove the bloodied cloth, biting your lip at the sting. Your thighs are sticky. There's no water here. You wipe with a bit of torn linen and press a new cloth in place, tying it in place with twine wrapped around your hips. It's bulky, scratchy, but it must do. You've heard of women using moss, even handfuls of straw wrapped in cloth. Anything absorbent will suffice. You remember when the blood first came, your mother handed you a rag and said, "You're a woman now. Don't let the men see you cry." And you didn't. You still don't. The cramps twist in your abdomen. You grip the wooden beam beside the curtain and breathe through it. There is no fire-hot bottle to press against your belly, no tea brewed with pain-relieving herbs, those are saved for fevers or childbirth. No one considers menstruation an ailment worth soothing. You return to the main room, walking carefully. You've become a master at hiding discomfort. The men never know, and the children must never see you falter. If they ask, you say you're fine. You always say you're fine. Bleeding will last 4 or 5 days. During that time, you'll still kneel by the hearth, carry water, walk to the well, mend clothes and cradle crying children. If you're lucky, it won't be heavy this time. If you're unlucky, you'll soak through again and be forced to clean the mess while pretending nothing is wrong. And then there's the smell. It's always there, faint, metallic, earthy. Wash often during your courses, but there's only so much that can be done when water is scarce and soap is handmade from ashes and fat. You wonder if others notice. You pray they don't. Some months, the pain is worse. Your lower back seizes up. The ache radiates into your thighs. It's hard to stand for long, but you do it anyway. One hand pressed against your hip as you stir the pot, pretending the tears welling in your eyes are from the smoke. You've seen women faint from it. You've heard them whisper to the healer about clots and gushes that last weeks, but you don't speak of such things aloud. The men dismiss it as women's business, a topic not fit for table or church. The priest once said it was Eve's punishment, the blood, her burden. You've internalized the silence. Even your daughters don't see you wince. One evening, as you tuck them in by the hearth, your middle child whispers, "Mother, why do you hold your belly?" You smile, brush her hair from her face, and say, "Just tired, my lamb." Then you kiss her forehead and return to the fire, where the pot needs stirring and your knees ache from the cold floor. Later, after the children are asleep, your husband reaches for you in bed. You flint not because of pain, though there is that, but because your bleeding should be reason enough to be left alone. But he doesn't ask, and you don't say no. Not really. You lie there, silent, eyes to the rafters, hoping it ends quickly. In the morning, the cloth is stained anew. You rinse it quietly outside, where no one sees. You hang it behind the house, away from the others, so the neighbors won't whisper. You wonder, sometimes, what it might be like to bleed without shame. To rest, to be handed a cup of tea and told, "Take your time." But no such words exist in this world. So you press the cloth in place, tie it tight, and go on. Because you must. Kneel every Sunday morning, hands clasped, eyes lowered, the wooden floor biting into your knees through your thin skirts. The church is cold and dim, lit by smoky tallow candles and the soft flicker of oil lamps. You do not speak unless told. You do not question. You are watched here not only by God, but by the priest, your neighbors, the very rafters above you. Every move you make is part of a performance. A bowed head. A whispered prayer. A small, practiced nod at the priest's words, but beneath your skin lies something unspoken, a quiet resistance, buried too deep to name. Church teaches you what a woman is. You have heard it from the pulpit since you were old enough to sit still. A woman is obedient. Chaste. Silent. A servant to her husband. A bearer of children. A keeper of the home. A reflection of Mary. If she is lucky. Of Eve. If she is not. You learned quickly what happens when women step out of place. The priest tells stories of women who dared to speak back, who practiced herbs too confidently, who danced without shame. They vanished. Some were sent away to serve the church. Others were simply not seen again. You've seen the eyes of the priest linger too long on younger women. You've heard him scold a girl for wearing her hair too loosely, for laughing too loudly, for sitting with her back too straight. Pride is the devil's mirror, he says. You take care to slump your shoulders slightly. The fear of judgment lives in your body. It rides behind every word you speak in public. If you laugh too much, you are frivolous. If you are too quiet, you are hiding something. If your child misbehaves, it is your failure. If your husband drinks too much, you are to blame for not keeping him satisfied at home. Confession is required once a month. You walk to the stone chapel and kneel on cold flagstones, your breath puffing into the stale air. When the priest asks what sins you carry, you speak carefully, never too little, or it looks like arrogance, never too much, or it invites suspicion. Impatience, you say. Resentment. Jealousy of others' comfort. You never mention the deep, heavy silence in your chest, the one that wonders if God sees how hard your days are. You don't mention the dreams that visit you at night of walking alone through woods, free from noise, from obligation. That kind of dreaming could be dangerous. And besides, they say women are more easily tempted by the devil. Weak of will. Quick to sin. Born from the rib of a man and made to serve. These ideas have never been written by women. But you are taught them anyway. You teach your daughters the same things. You tell them to be good, to cover their hair, to lower their gaze when men pass. You don't want to. But not teaching them would be worse. Would leave them open to blame if something goes wrong. A woman who speaks her mind is improper. A woman who refuses her husband is wicked. A woman who doesn't attend mass is suspect. A woman who smiles at a man who is not her husband is dangerous. Once, a neighbor girl was found walking with a stable boy after sunset. Nothing was proven. No harm done. But the talk began immediately. Within a week, her parents sent her to a distant cousin. The priest warned others from the pulpit about the corruption of modesty. You never saw her again. Sometimes, you are asked to report. Not directly. But the priest will mention sin among women, and his eyes will sweep the pews. The pressure is there, heavy and invisible. You learn to hold your secrets close. You do not whisper to other women about your pain. You do not share too much about your doubts. You keep your faith neat and folded. Yet beneath it all there is something else. When the men leave after service and the women linger by the font, eyes tired, but knowing, there's a silent understanding passed between you. A flicker of something unsaid. You all live under the same watchful eye. And you all survive it together. Your faith is not weak. It is different from theirs. It lives in the moments you find peace in the garden, in the way you hold your child when she cries, in the bread you bake with cracked hands, in the quiet whisper you send into the dark when no one can hear, please let tomorrow be gentle. Because in this world, God may be watching, but so is everyone else. Your wedding was not a celebration. It was a transaction, two families sealing a pact with bread, ale, and a solemn nod across the table. There were no flowers, no kiss under the stars, no trembling vow spoken from the heart. Only a new dress, borrowed boots, and a man 10 years older than you, standing stiffly beside your father. You did not love him. You did not know how. Love was a luxury spoken of in stories, sung about by minstrels, not something women like you received. You didn't choose him, and he did not ask for your heart. He asked for your obedience, your labor, your body. That first night, you were led to the bed of your mother's old mattress stuffed with straw and rags. You were told to lie still and be brave. It is your duty, they said. Will be quick. You remember staring at the ceiling beams, gripping the wool blanket, pretending you were somewhere else. You bled, and no one asked if you were in pain. Each night after that, you did not resist. You did not want to be cruel. You knew your place. When he reached for you, you turned your face away, offered silence. Love did not live there. Tolerance did. Endurance did. Sometimes, numbness. Children came. You accepted them with the same quiet resolve. You loved them fiercely, even as your body cracked beneath the weight of pregnancy, even as your hips ached and your back curved from hours of carrying and cradling. The children are the only ones who touched you with gentleness. Your husband never changed. He came to you when he wanted. There were nights he smelled of barley beer and sweat, his hands rough, his breath hot against your ear. You never said no. Not because you didn't want to, but because no was not a word women could use. You have seen other women live the same fate. One neighbor girl married at 12. She bore 7 children by 22. Her eyes were always hollow, like a ghost watching her own life from afar. Another was married to a cruel man. He hit her often, and still, the priest said, pray for his temper and serve him well. You once heard of a woman who ran away. She had fallen in love with someone else, a merchant's son, kind and soft-spoken. They were caught at the edge of the village, bags packed. She was dragged back and beaten. Her lover disappeared. Some say he joined the army to escape the shame. She was never the same after that. Love, once attempted, had cost her everything. And so, you did not seek it. Younger girls sometimes ask if you love your husband. You smile and say, he works hard. That is enough. Love is not what binds your marriage. It is bread, children, obligation, silence. There is a kind of closeness born from years of routine, from sharing space and hardship. It is not love. Not in the way the poets speak of. Sometimes at night, you allow yourself to wonder, what if you had been free to choose? What kind of man would you have loved? Would he have listened when you spoke? Would he have waited for you to say yes? Would he have kissed you gently in the morning, or touched your hand in the garden, or sung to the baby just to see you smile? You never speak these thoughts aloud. They are dangerous, foolish, even. A woman's mind should not wander to what cannot be. Instead, you wake before him. You bake the bread. You bind your hair. You wipe your eyes when no one sees. And you lie beside him at night, your hands folded quietly on your stomach, your heart turned inward. You've made peace with this life. You must. There is no road out. Only forward, through each day. You survive with grace, not because you were given love, but because you learned to carry life even in its absence. Daughters may ask someday, did you ever love father? And you might say, he was a good man. But what you'll think is, I never had the chance. There are no letters bearing your name. No books that mention your birth, your thoughts, your stories. The church ledger recorded your baptism but only as daughter of. The marriage scroll, signed by the priest, listed you as bride of. And when you die, it will be your husband's name carved in the stone, if there's money for a stone at all. You will not be remembered. Only survived. You cannot read. You cannot write. There are no hours in your day for such luxuries. The only alphabet you know is the rhythm of thread through cloth, of spoon through soup, of broom through dust. Your hands speak more than your tongue ever has. You tell stories with stitches. You pass down knowledge in gesture, not ink. Boys in the village go to the priest to learn their letters. Your sons may one day scribble their names on parchment. But you must send your daughters out to fetch water, to knead duff, to gather eggs. They learn what you learned how to watch, to listen, to endure. They will not sign their names either. But they'll remember how to make bread rise without yeast, to count herbs by feel, how to birth a child in the dark, with nothing but a prayer and a warm rag. There is power in what you know, though no one names it power. You remember who borrowed your comb 3 weeks ago. You remember how long to steep the fever few. You remember every wound your child has ever had, and every way to comfort them. Hold your family's survival in your memory, but no one asks you to record it. Men discuss the price of grain and the state of the realm at the tavern. You discuss how to keep a pot from cracking in the cold. You know when the hens will stop laying. You can predict a storm by the way your knees ache. You store knowledge in your bones, not in a book. And still, the world is built with names you are not allowed to write. Your land is not yours. It belongs to your husband, or your husband's father. When you married, your degree was paid not to you, but for you. You became a part of the transaction livestock, tools, cloth, and you. If your husband dies, you may be allowed to stay, but only if a male heir takes over. If not, the land is reclaimed, and you are moved on. Once, a travelling friar asked if anyone in the village could read Latin. You laughed quietly. No woman here would ever be asked. Even the psalms you hear in church are mumbled in a tongue you do not understand. You only learn to follow the rhythm. Kneel, rise, bow, sing. Your husband has a name. He may not be kind, but he is known. He is written into records when he pays tax, when he joins the militia, when he buys a goat. You are mentioned only as wife of Nevermore. The midwife who helped you deliver your third child knew more of your pain than any priest or lord. But she too is nameless in the books. Her work, like yours, dissolves into the smoke of time. And yet, you persist. You carve your story into the crust of bread you bake, the embroidery you mend in the firelight, the lullabies you whisper to your children. Write your legacy in meals, in warmth, in survival. You are not ink. You are blood. You are the breath that keeps the fire alive, though the hearth bears no plaque. You think, sometimes, about women long dead. Your mother, your grandmother. You do not know when they were born. Do not know what they dreamed. You remember their hands knotted from years of kneading duff, one smelling faintly of mint and chamomile. That is all. That is enough. Some day your daughters may remember your hands too. They may tell their daughters, she worked harder than anyone. Kept us warm. She made the best turnip stew. And that will be your story. Not written. Not carved. But carried. And in a world that never names you, that is how you survive. It starts with a cough, shallow, persistent, nagging like a whisper in the chest. Then the fever creeps in, quiet but sure, soaking into the skin and the bedclothes. Your child is the first to fall ill. His cheeks flush red and he tosses in the night, too hot to touch, too weak to cry. Do what you can. You steep the elderflowers and mint. You crush garlic with the back of a spoon and mix it with honey, if you have any left. You press cool cloths to his brow, though the water is barely colder than his skin. There is no doctor to summon. Only the healer woman 2 cottages down, and she is already tending to 3 other children with the same sickness. You've lost a child before. You know how it begins. You know the signs: slowing breath, the glassy eyes, the way a little hand no longer grips yours. You pray it will not happen again. You pray not to anyone in particular, just softly, constantly, to the walls, the sky, the smoke above the fire. When you get sick yourself, it's harder. You cannot rest. The fever burns behind your eyes. Your joints ache as if the marrow is melting away. But the bread still must rise. The floor must be swept. Your children still cry for you. Your husband still expects supper. You hide your illness as long as you can. If others know you're sick, they may fear you. They may say your house is cursed. You've heard the whispers before: she's ill too often. Her children are weak. Something unnatural lives in that home. So you cough into a rag when no one sees. You wash your hands more often. You pray the smell of vinegar will hide the fever's scent. And you keep moving. Always moving. There are no pills, no injections, no sterile clinics. The tools of healing here are roots, steam, and guesswork. Poultice made from crushed onion may draw the heat. A tincture of yarrow may help slow the bleeding. But these are fragile hopes, passed from woman to woman, tested in kitchens, not written in books. When childbirth goes wrong, it is the midwife who decides what can be done. She knows how to reposition a breech baby, how to press herbs between the mother's teeth to ease the pain. But if the bleeding won't stop, there is nothing. You've helped bury 2 neighbors this year alone, both women, both gone before 30. The priest says, sickness is the will of God. Suffering purifies the soul. You try to believe him when your son shivers against your breast, too weak to eat, his skin burning with heat. But it is hard. It is so hard. You know not to call for the healer too soon. She is cautious. She's been accused of witchcraft before, once for curing a child others had given up on, once for growing too many herbs. You bring her eggs when you can. A spool of thread, a kind word in public. Even kindness cannot protect her forever. If your sickness worsens, you may try bloodletting. Your husband once insisted on it, said it cleared the bad humours. You lay on the table while he held your arm, and a neighbor's blade cut a line into your skin. The dizziness came quickly, and with it, darkness. You woke to a wet rag on your neck and a pounding in your head. You told him it helped. It didn't. In this world, your body is both the battlefield and the battlefield nurse. You stitch your own wounds. You mop your own sweat. You walk through sickness as if it were merely weather and inconvenience to be endured. When a child dies, the house goes quiet. Everyone tiptoes, even the wind. You wrap the small body yourself, hands shaking but sure, and kiss the cool forehead one last time. There is no grand funeral. Just a hole in the earth and a cross made from kindling. You return home, make the evening soup, and fold the cloth he used to sleep with. You do not cry aloud. You cannot afford to. When you recover, if you recover, you carry the memory of it in your body. Every cough, every ache, every night spent on the edge of life and death is etched into your bones. You are stronger than most men know. But strength here is not a gift. It is the price of survival. And no one will ever write your recovery in a book. No one will mark the day you stood up again. But you will remember. And you will carry on. Because you must. When the sun finally slips behind the trees and the last bit of light fades from the smoky pane, your body aches in places you can't name. The weight of the day clings to your skin like soot, settling into your shoulders, your lower back, your eyelids. But rest does not come easily, not in this life. Not in this body. Not in this century. You move slowly through the room, tucking children under scratchy blankets, smoothing the thin cloth over their narrow shoulders. One of them coughs again, sharp and shallow. You press your hand to his forehead, relieved to feel only warmth, not fire. Littlest whimpers in her sleep and reaches for your wrist. You stay a few seconds, longer beside her, watching the rise and fall of her breath. You are always listening, even in the dark. You bank the fire, pushing the coals toward the center, covering them with ash so they last through the night. If the fire dies, you'll wake in freezing cold. If the coals stay hot, you can restart the flame by morning. It's a delicate balance like everything else. The house is never truly quiet. The wood creaks, mice scurry in the walls, wind whistles through the cracks in the planks. Sometimes you hear the groan of a roof beam or the cry of a distant animal. You've learned which sounds to ignore and which to fear. When the work is done and the house settles, you prepare for sleep. There is no bathing, only a quick rinse with lukewarm water in the corner of the room. If you're lucky, you pull off your apron, leave on your shift, and unbind your hair. It falls in knots, smelling of smoke and cabbage and the damp earth from the garden. You climb into the shared bed, where your husband already lies, snoring softly. You take the outer edge, nearest the cold. There is no pillow, just folded linen stuffed with hay. The mattress sags in the center, where the straw has long been crushed flat. You curl into yourself for warmth. You do not expect peace. Not here. Sometimes, your husband turns toward you. His hand reaches for your hip or thigh. You freeze. You breathe carefully. Maybe he'll fall back asleep. Maybe tonight he won't ask. But if he does, there is no room for refusal. Your body is not yours, not at night, not by law, not by custom. Become still, silent, present only in the sense that you are not absent. When it's over, he rolls away. You stare at the ceiling and count the rafters in the dark. You trace the cracks in the plaster with your eyes. You wait for the feeling to pass, the anger, the shame, the emptiness, and when it doesn't, you bury it deeper. Outside, the moon hangs heavy behind thin clouds. You remember nights before marriage, when you used to lie awake and dream of distant lands or open fields or hands that held you gently. Those thoughts visit you less now. The dreamscape has been replaced by tasks undone and worries ahead. Your mind won't quiet easily. You replay the day in fragments. Did you leave the bucket too close to the door? Will the goat break loose again? Did your daughter eat enough? Is that cough in her chest worse? Even in sleep, you do not rest. Your dreams are filled with running, with carrying children, with endless spinning wheels. You wake often, checking the fire, listening for fevered cries. One ear remains tuned to danger. It is motherhood, in this age never fully asleep, never fully awake. On rare nights, when the house is still and the fire holds, you lie in silence and feel the weight of your own life pressing down. Not in bitterness, but in a quiet, aching awareness of how much you give, how little is left for yourself. And yet there are moments. A child's breath steady beside you. The feel of clean linen on your skin. A warm ember's glow casting gold on the wall. In those moments, peace visits not as a guest, but as a shadow. Close your eyes, hoping this will be one of the gentler nights. And you drift if not into rest, then into stillness, into the quiet space between exhaustion and dawn. Sometimes, as you scrub the wooden floor or stitch a tear in your child's tunic by candlelight, you wonder what it must be like to be one of them women who live behind stone walls in tall towers, whose hands are soft and who never fetch water from the well. You've seen them on feast days, riding past the village in finely embroidered gowns, their hair braided with ribbons, their cheeks pale and untouched by sun. They sit side saddle on horses groomed smoother than your children's hair. They smell of lavender and cloves, not smoke and animal dung. They wave, sometimes like queens to the fields. You also know this, their lives are not fairy tales either. If you were a noblewoman, you wouldn't be working in the field. You wouldn't be hauling firewood, or stooping to pick leeks from a frozen garden. But you would still be trapped just in silk instead of homespun. You'd be married off young, like you were, but your husband would be older still, and chosen not by affection, but by politics and land. You'd be a pawn moved on a game board between fathers and kings. Your wedding might be grand roasted swan, minstrels, dancing in the hall, but it would change nothing. You'd still be bartered. You'd live in a castle, yes, but castles are cold. The stone walls sweat in the winter and echo with every footstep. You'd have servants, but also watchers. Ladies in waiting to dress you, maids to brush your hair, guards outside your door not for your protection, but your control. Privacy would not exist. You'd be expected to produce an heir soon, and without complaint. Your womb would be the business of men, your fertility discussed in court whispers. If you bore a daughter, there would be polite disappointment. If you bore no children at all, there would be rumours. And if you bore too many daughters and no sons, your worth would wither, no matter how fine your embroidery. You might read, if your family valued such things. You might play lute or harp. You might know Latin prayers by heart, but your knowledge would still be ornamental, something to admire, not to use. Opinions would be dangerous. A sharp tongue in silk is still a threat. And what if your husband was cruel? Drunk? Hangry? Jealous? What if he locked you in a room, took other women to his bed, struck you when you defied him? No one would come. The church would say, obey your husband. The servants would turn their faces. Your screams would echo through stone and die unheard. If you tried to escape, if you ran or rebelled, you would be punished more harshly than any peasant. Your shame would stain your entire family. They would hide your name, erase you from tapestries, send you quietly to a convent or worse. Even the clothes would be a burden. Gowns laced so tight, you could hardly breathe. Layers of wool and brocade, trapping sweat beneath the perfume. Wouldn't be allowed to cut your hair. You'd sleep in beds high off the ground, alone or beside a man you barely know. Yes, your hands would be clean, your skin pale, your meals warm and plentiful. But the price would be your freedom. You would be a doll-dressed, displayed, moved. The cage would simply be gilded. And still, despite all that, you admit you envy them sometimes. Envy the warmth. Envy the soft shoes. Envy the way they never look tired. You wonder what it's like to wake without back pain, to eat without rationing, to sleep with the certainty that your children will not go hungry tomorrow. But then, you remind yourself, no woman here, peasant or noble, is truly free. Not in this world. Still, you dream. Not every night, but sometimes. You imagine what it might be like to be a noblewoman who breaks the rules, slips out of the castle and runs into the woods, who finds her own path, who writes her own story. And then the baby cries, or the fire dies, or your husband calls, and the dream fades. The reality returns. You are not a noblewoman. You are a medieval wife, mother, labourer, healer, cook, and silent scribe of a life no one will write. But your strength, that is your own. Whether in rags or velvet, you carry the world on your back. Quietly. Every day. There are rules in your world unspoken, unwritten, but carved deep into the rhythm of daily life. They are older than the village walls, older than the church bell, older than your mother's hands. And when you break them, even slightly, the world reminds you swiftly, cruelly, and without remorse. The first time you raised your voice at your husband, you were 17. Come home drunk, threw his boots across the room, scaring the children. You snapped not with rage, just a single sharp word. Enough. The silence that followed was heavier than any blow. The room froze. The children stared. He looked at you like you were a stranger. The next morning, he didn't speak to you. That afternoon, the neighbor woman didn't wave. The day after, the priest delivered a sermon on the sin of prideful wives. You learn then, even a whisper of resistance echoes loud in a woman's life. You remember when another wife in the village tried to leave. The husband was cruel, truly cruel. He hit her in front of her son, cursed her in the square, left her alone for days without food. One morning, she disappeared. Some said she fled to her sister's village. Others said she wandered into the woods and never came back. Her name hasn't been spoken since. The priest told the congregation that abandonment is a sin. The village moved on. Her son was taken in by an uncle. The husband remarried within a season. You've seen other women punished more quietly. The girl who laughed too much was married off sooner than expected. Another who asked too many questions during catechism was barred from communion for a month. The healer woman who gathered herbs alone after dark was accused of witchery when a neighbor's cow died unexpectedly. You've heard the word witch whispered like a curse and like a prayer feared, yet not understood. You keep your knowledge quiet. You hide the herbs in baskets beneath turnips. You never speak of dreams. You do not read signs in tea leaves or clouds, though sometimes you wish you could. Even among other women, there are limits. If you complain too often, they grow quiet. If you admit you don't love your husband, they look away. Everyone bears their pain in private, like a shared, sacred burden. You become fluent in small nods, coded sighs, the language of survival. Your daughter is growing older now. 12. Sharp-eyed. Clever. She asks questions. Why must she cover her hair in church? Why can't she run with the boys? Why must she curtsy to a man who smells of wine and says nothing kind? You hush her. Not because she's wrong, but because the world won't listen kindly. Want her to keep her fire but safely, quietly, in the corners of her mind. You try to teach her how to appear obedient, how to nod without agreeing, how to avoid becoming a target. It feels like betrayal. It also feels like love. You disobey in small ways now. You whisper stories to your children that weren't written by priests. Give extra stew to the widow who's been cast aside. You save seeds from the good plants, even though the Lord says they belong to Him. You mend your neighbor's shirts when you have no thread to spare. These are not grand rebellions. But in your world, they're enough to get noticed. Once, you offered willow bark tea to a woman for her pain. A man overheard. He asked why you knew such things. You smiled and said, "It's just something my mother taught me." You prayed he wouldn't ask again. Disobedience here doesn't always wear a crown of fire. Sometimes it looks like a mother letting her daughter read. A wife refusing her husband's hand one night. A woman planting healing herbs among the cabbages. It's quiet. It's constant. It's dangerous. You've learned to move carefully through the tight corridors of expectation. You stay within your lines mostly. You know the penalty if you cross them. You think about this often, especially as your daughters grow. You want more for them. Not riches. Not palaces. Just the ability to choose. Say yes or no. To rest without fear. To speak without shame. But you know the cost. So each day, you rise and walk the line again, on foot in duty, the other in defiance. You smile at the priest. You bake the bread. And sometimes, in the dark, you let yourself dream of a world where obedience is no longer survival, but a choice. Until then, you keep your head low, your ears open, and your fire hidden beneath ash. You are not alone, though it often feels that way. The burdens you carry, the silence you keep, the aches you never name, they are shared, quietly, invisibly, by the women around you. You have no banner, no oath, no secret meeting under moonlight. Yet, there is a bond, ancient, unspoken, and stronger than any law. In the mornings, when you hang linens beside your neighbor, she doesn't ask how your night was, but her glance lingers on the bruises beneath your collarbone, and her hands move more gently that day. She offers you extra soap, without explanation. You thank her, and nothing more is said. It is enough. The old woman 3 cottages down once taught you how to stitch a wound, how to boil wild thyme for cough, how to make poultices with onion skins and fat. She never called herself a healer. Too dangerous. But her knowledge lives in you now. When your child burned his hand on the hearthstone, it was her voice you heard in your mind as you wrapped the cloth. When a neighbor gives birth, the other women gather. No midwife works alone. They arrive with rags, hot water, clean straw, prayers. One holds the mother's hand. One whispers encouragement. Another wipes the sweat from her brow. No one asks for thanks. No one keeps score. Sometimes, when a man drinks too much and his wife arrives at the water trough with a blackened eye, no one comments. But later, someone will leave a jar of balm at her door. Another will offer to take her children for an afternoon. Still another will bring her the best cut of stew meat, pretending it's from an overfull larder. They never speak of it. In the fields, as you weed side by side with other wives, the conversation is light, the weather, the crops, the children. But between the lines, between the careful silences, there is understanding. Someone says, "My back hurts more than usual today," and another murmurs, "Mine too." You both know it's not just the weeds that are wearing you down. You have learned to read each other's faces. A furrowed brow means a sleepless night. A bitten lip means a child's fever. A trembling hand means something worse. And yet, no one presses. You offer what you can, an extra portion of porridge, a second-hand shawl, a place to sit while you stir the stew. There are moments of laughter, too soft, hushed, like stolen treasures, a joke whispered while mending hems, a knowing look shared when the priest forgets your name but remembers your husband's, a quick grin over burnt bread. These moments are small victories. They matter. And there are moments of grief. You've seen women kneel beside small graves, their hands clenched in their aprons, eyes hollow. You've stood beside them, offering nothing but presence. That, too, is a language. Sometimes, it's the only one you need. The men don't see this world. They live beside it, but not within it. They don't know the codes, the glances, the silent gifts exchanged over fence posts. They think you talk of cooking and children. And sometimes you do. But beneath that, always, is the quiet web of shared endurance. Even your daughters sense it, though they don't yet understand. They watch you and your neighbors with wide eyes, learning the rhythm of this hidden world. They see you pass a warm bowl through a window without knocking. They hear the edge in your voice when a stranger lingers too long near a girl not yet grown. They are listening, always. You teach them through doing, through surviving. This sisterhood is not one of romance or rebellion. It is forged in scraped knees, in empty cupboards, in long nights by dying fires. It is bound together with needle and thread, with tears wiped away before they fall, with hands that hold without asking. Wonder, sometimes, how many generations this has passed through. How many women before you offered a hand beneath the table, a blanket in the dark, a smile that said, "I see you. I know." You wonder if they felt proud, or tired, or both. Do not wear a crown. No one sings songs of you. But you are part of something vast, an ancient lineage of women who bend without breaking, who speak without words, who save each other in the quietest of ways. And when your time comes, when your hair is grey and your hands too stiff to spin or sweep, you know this, the women will come. They will gather by your hearth. They will feed your children. They will braid your granddaughter's hair. They will speak your name, even if no one writes it. Your story carried not in books, but in memory will live on. The fire has burned low, just embers now soft and glowing in the hearth, casting faint shadows on the timber walls. The children sleep, their breaths, slow and shallow, arms flung across wool blankets in crooked shapes. Your husband snores softly beside you. The house is finally still. You lie awake on your back, hands folded atop your stomach, your eyes tracing the lines in the ceiling for the 100th time. Aches in your hips have dulled, but not vanished. The throb behind your eyes from too little food and too much smoke has settled into a quiet pressure. You have lived another day. A day of bending and stitching, of chopping and cradling, of bleeding and bearing. A day of soft words spoken to small faces, of no thanks, of no reward, of no pause. But you did it. You rose. You endured. You kept the fire alive, both the one in the hearth and the one within. Outside the cottage walls, the wind rustles through the trees. An owl hoots once in the distance. Somewhere, another woman is finishing her day, brushing the soot from her sleeves, tucking a child into straw. You don't know her name. She doesn't know yours, but you are the same. She, too, carries a world on her back and moves through it with grace that no one sees. You think back to the girl you once were barefoot in the fields, cheeks pink from sun, dreaming of gentler days. That girl still lives somewhere inside you, buried beneath the layers of duty and fatigue. She blinks awake in moments like these, in the stillness before sleep, when the pain loosens its grip and the silence feels kind instead of cruel. If you could speak to her, that girl with the bright eyes and calloused palms, you would tell her, you were never weak. You were never unworthy. You were never less. You would tell her that survival, in a world that denies your voice, is its own kind of victory. You breathe deeply. The air is cool now, damp with night. You pull the blanket tighter, adjusting your body to find a pocket of warmth. You listen to the sounds of your life snoring, fire crackling, wind outside. This is your kingdom. This is your empire, and it will be forgotten by most. Histories will not record your name. No ballads will be sung of how you saved your children from hunger, or how you worked with broken fingers, or how you made a home from nothing. But you will have mattered. More than they will ever know. Because without women like you, without your hands, your spine, your silence, there would be no farms, no villages, no kings, no kingdoms. The world rests upon your shoulders, and yet it dares to look past you. But you see it. And now, perhaps, so do we. You close your eyes. For once, you allow your body to soften. The work will wait. The aching will return. Fire will need tending. But not yet. Let this be a moment of rest, of honor, of peace. And when you wake again tomorrow, or in a world beyond this one, you will carry the same strength, the same quiet courage, into the next life. Because you were never just a medieval woman. You were the keeper of life itself.